سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're listening to the Quranic Reflection Show on Inspire FM. I'm your host Waqas Mirza, and we are joined by Sheikh Noorud-deen Rashid. Today's topic is quite seasonal because Christmas is coming up, so we're just discussing how Muslims should engage with Christmas.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Rabbi yassir wa inni ya kareem. I think the first thing regarding this to really emphasize is the approach of the Messenger of Allah, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, with regards to this ummah being distinct from other ummah generally, but especially when it comes to religious matters. This, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam emphasized a great deal. There are so many hadith in the books of hadith. You'll find the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, "Khalifu, be different to Khalifu al-mushrikeen, be different to the idolaters. Khalifu al-Yahud, be different to the Jews. Khalifu al-Majus, be different to the Magians." And like this, you have so many hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave this a lot of importance, especially when you're surrounded by people of that religion. Okay, or they're close to you. We often find the Prophet ﷺ during the Meccan period saying things like Khaliful Mushrikun, be different to the idolaters, because in Makkah Sharif the Muslims were surrounded by Mushrikun. Okay, be different to the Mushrikun. And then in Medina Sharif you hear a lot more of Khaliful Yahud, be different to the Jews, because they are Jews, they are living next to them. And so the Prophet ﷺ really gave a huge amount of importance to this ummah having its clear and distinct religious identity, okay, and not just merging into whatever religious community is around us. Okay. As I said, this was especially emphasized with regards to religious things, but sometimes it went beyond that a little bit. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about being different to the Magians or the Persians with regards to growing the beard and trimming the mustache, because they used to do the opposite. They shave the beard and trim the mustache. So, it does expand beyond that sometimes, but generally speaking, it is with regards to religious matters. So this is important for us to bear in mind. We should understand this well, that this is a part of our deen. This is something we should be very proud of. Okay, not personal pride, but pride in our religion, pride in our Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To see this teaching of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as something blessed, something mubarak, something sacred, inshallah. Not something to be, weak about, not something to, be embarrassed about. No. We're very proud of it, without being arrogant. Okay, we are proud of these things, inshallah ta'ala. We'll say to people, that's fine, you have your religious practices, we have our religious practices, we have different religions, we have different religious practices, and we, as the Quran says, lakum dinukum waliya deen. Okay, to you your religion, and to me my religion. When it comes to religious practices, we don't get involved with one another. Other things, no problem, inshallah, some kind of community event or, something like that, as long as nothing haram is taking place. Yes, and we should have a community, any community we live in, we should be part of it. Okay, but we're going to be part of that community as the Prophet ﷺ was part of the Meccan community, Muhammad, or the Prophet ﷺ was part of the Medinan community. And these are beautiful examples from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. You have an example in Mecca Sharif where the Muslims were the minority. And you have an example in Medina Sharif where the Muslims were the majority. And in both cases, whether they were the minority or whether they were the majority, the Prophet ﷺ always observed and made sure or encouraged the Sahaba to observe the religious teaching, and didn't feel pressured or wasn't pressured, and nor were the Sahaba pressured into leaving their distinct religious practices and just doing what the majority community there is doing. So this is important for us to bear in mind. Okay, that yes. Despite that fact that the Prophet ﷺ, religiously was very distinct, sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad, but with regards to other matters, the Prophet ﷺ was part of the community. When somebody in the community needed help, the Prophet ﷺ was there. When something in the community needed doing, there's an issue at hand, the Prophet ﷺ was part of it, be it in Makkah Sharif, be it in Medina Sharif. Medina Sharif even more so, because the Prophet ﷺ there was the head of state and met with the Jewish communities there, and spoke about how to work together, spoke about a common approach to how things are going to be in Medina Sharif, how an approach to external influences or even external forces at times attacking Medina Sharif, and common goals, common issues within the community. The Prophet ﷺ was very much involved. Okay, but that's the point here. When it's religious, then we are distinct. Now, so with regards to Christmas specifically, so that's going to be our approach. This is not our religious holiday. This is a Christian religious holiday. Okay, we're going to respect it from a distance. We're not going to get ourselves involved in it. What do I mean by respect it? We're not going to speak negatively about it. We're not going to say, oh, you people are this and you are that and you are, we're not going to do that. We'll say, okay, fine, this is their religious practice. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. To you your religion and to me my religion. So that's how we look at Christmas. Okay, this is not ours. Isa alayhi salam is ours. Okay, and that we spoke about in the talk on the biography of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam is ours. He's our prophet. Alayhi salatu wassalam. We love Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. We consider ourselves to be closest to Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. Same with Sayyidah Maryam. Sayyidah Maryam, she's praised in the Quran. She's a Siddiqa according to us. Okay, she is a very high-ranking spiritual individual, radiallahu ta'ala anha, according to us. Okay, we're not going to say Isa alayhi salam is for the Christians. No, we don't say that. Say that Maryam's for the Christians. No. Okay, but Christmas as a religious celebration, it's got nothing to do with Islam. That's an important point. So regarding religious celebrations, the Prophet ﷺ was very clear. Let's look at a couple of hadith here. First one from Sahih Bukhari, hadith number 952, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Abu Bakr, inna li kulli qawmin Eid, wa hadha Eiduna. Oh Abu Bakr, every people, they have Eid, they have religious celebrations, holidays, and this is ours. Okay, it's quite clear in this hadith. The next hadith is clearer still, but quite clear that every people have theirs, and this is our one. Okay, when it comes to these kind of things, we are distinct. The other hadith regarding this I wanted to quote is from Abu Dawood, hadith number 1134, which is a Sahih hadith, where it mentions that the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina Sharif, and the people there, they used to have 2 days, literally says وَلَهُمْ يَوْمَانِ يَلْعَبُونَ فِيهِمَا, that they used to have 2 days in which they used to play. It literally says play. Okay, but the kind of holidays that they used to have. And the Prophet ﷺ asked about them, مَا هَذَانِ الْيَوْمَانِ, what are these 2 days? And they said, we used to play in these in the days of Jahiliyyah. The days of Jahiliyyah is the days prior to them becoming Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ says, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has replaced those 2 with 2 that are better than it. Yawm al-Adha wa Yawm al-Fitr. The day of Eid al-Adha and the day of Eid al-Fitr. Okay, and that's the point. The Prophet ﷺ said replaced. Okay, because this is something the pagans they used to do. This was part of their practice, their culture, their way of doing things. The hadith doesn't clarify whether it had religious connotations or not, but that's the understanding. Okay, that this is kind of related to their religious or cultural practice, and the Prophet ﷺ told them to leave that and to see these 2 days as our Eid. So this is a very, very important starting point. Okay, as Muslims, with regards to the teachings of our Prophet ﷺ, we should be strong, we should be firm, we should be proud, we should understand that these teachings are not just to be harsh with people. Our Prophet ﷺ was the most kind, he was the most merciful, sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad, but at the same time the Prophet ﷺ did want us to be religiously distinct.
So you spoke about how we should be distinct from them and let them do their practices, but at the same time, in Islam, a Muslim man's allowed to marry a Christian woman, and we're allowed to eat kosher meat, for example. So where is the line exactly?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question. Now, so yeah, we don't get involved, but we let them do their practices, no problem whatsoever, inshallah ta'ala. Even in a Muslim country, the non-Muslims who live in that country, they are free to practice their religion however they like. Nowadays in the West, this is an argument a lot of people, make. Not all, obviously, Islamophobes usually, that, they want Sharia law, they want a separate law or what have you, which is not the case. We're not in the government trying to change the law. Having said that, yes, every Muslim believes and should believe that the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is correct. Okay? The law that's made by people cannot be equal to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is correct. That's important for Muslims to know. Okay, but we have examples of, for example, Sahaba who lived in minority situations, and they were, living there, and they were practicing the law themselves. Radiallahu ta'ala anhum in Abyssinia, for example, they were practicing the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala themselves, but the Christians who were the majority and they were running the government there, they practiced their own man-made laws. This is up to them. So, anyway, to come back to the point, they say that, the Muslims want Sharia law and, they want a separate legal system or this or that. The point is, in Islamic history, we've always been okay with that. We've always, despite being the majority and in power in Muslim lands, the Muslims, the legal system for them was Sharia. And the Kuffar, the legal system for them was whatever they chose to do. Okay, so they have absolutely, much more freedom than anywhere in the world. Okay, which is they practice their own religion, they even have their own separate legal system. So we don't stop them doing that. Okay, that's up to them. Okay, but yes, there is this question then, well, hold on a minute. Obviously, they're allowed to practice what they practice, but we do, let them practice, this shirk or kufr, whatever they're practicing. We allow them to have churches or synagogues, etc., houses of worship. A Muslim man can even marry a Jewish woman or a Christian woman. Okay, so those things are allowed. But you can't, for example, when they're celebrating or they're engaged in their worship, you can't stand there. Why? Okay. And what I always tend to say with regards to these issues, in Islam, everything comes down to evidence. Okay. When the Quran and Hadith says something, then that's it. That's how it goes. If the Quran and Hadith says, which it does, that a Muslim man can marry a Jewish woman or a Christian woman, or that can eat the meat of Ahl al-Kitab, then that's it. The Quran revealed it. Okay? And the Quran also tells us, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ, that you have your religion, we have our religion. The Prophet ﷺ explained this very clearly to us. We don't get involved when people are, actively involved in their religious practices or what have you. We don't do that. So ultimately, it's always a matter of evidence. This is what it comes down to, and that's the point. We are allowed to do certain things, it's fine, and it's not seen as validating other people's religious practice. It's not seen as, when a Muslim marries a Christian or Jewish woman, it's not seen as validating their religion. No, she practices hers, you practice yours. Okay, allowing them to have churches, etc., in Muslim lands is not seen as validating it; it's seen as tolerating it. You see, so this is a very, very important distinction to make. So, when they're involved in their worship, etc., we don't get involved. Okay, because first of all, as I said, it comes down to a matter of evidence. But secondly, if we're they're doing their worship, they're doing their candle night vigil, for example, and we're right there next to them, mixed with them, they're doing their prayers, etc. We're right there next to them, mixed with them. Okay, this in the minds of many is going to be seen as validation. Okay, that we feel, okay, their religious practice is fine and well, just like our religious practice is fine and well. But that's not the case. Islamically, we say Islam is the truth, Islam is the haqq, and Other people, they choose to accept that or reject that. Their affairs with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they choose to reject it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be their judge. If we have dialogue with them, we'll tell them that we believe you're wrong regarding this, and we believe it's more correct it's correct for you to enter into Islam. We're going to tell them that. But if they don't want to hear it and they're not interested in dialogue, they do what they do, and their judgments with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Another question, or something that we don't really think about really, is that, you know, it might be okay for Muslims, with Muslim families, or, you know, born Muslims, but you know, you have reverts and, you know, Muslims with Christian families. How should we deal with that? How should those Muslims deal with Christmas?
Yeah. So this is obviously a very, very important question. The first thing I would say here is that as a Muslim community, well, alhamdulillah, we do have a lot of reverts. We should, as a community, we should bear that in mind. You know, we should bear in mind that, you know, around this time, prior to these particular individuals becoming Muslim, prior to that, you know, they're surrounded by family, they have various activities that they're involved in. So in order to support them around that same time, we should have events and gatherings and such things for Muslims, and especially for revert Muslims, for them to come and attend. Okay, because they're not going to do a lot of the stuff they were doing before, so let's give them an alternative, something better, something greater, inshallah ta'ala. So that's the first thing. As a Muslim community, we must bear that in mind, and we must support our brothers and sisters in our community, inshallah. So specifically, you know, would it be allowed for a revert, for example, to go to have dinner with relatives around Christmas time? One thing I should say, when it comes to issues of family interaction, especially in the Hanafi madhab, there can be slightly, I'm not saying massively, but slightly more leniency with a revert Muslim who's got non-Muslim relatives than somebody whose relatives are Muslim. I'll give an example from the Hanafi fiqh. They say, generally speaking, when non-Muslims have funerals, we shouldn't go along. You see, leave it to them. You know, there's an element of religious practice and such things, so we don't go along. Okay. However, they made this exception. They said if a person's relative passes away and this person, the relative, is non-Muslim, okay, he is permitted to go along to the funeral as long as obviously he doesn't engage in any type of worship, and they also said tries to remain to the back of the procession, the funeral procession. So the point is, sometimes you can have a touch more leniency with a revert, but again, that's not for us to just start dictating. Okay, that's something we look into and study in the books of Islamic law to understand it. Now, so we have that. So this is what a lot of scholars, they will say, okay, fine, for a revert then, if the family is having dinner on Christmas Day, as long as there's no religious worship taking place, then you know, it's an opportunity for this person to spend time with family, which we know is a good thing, inshallah ta'ala. Even if the family is non-Muslim, you're supposed to spend time with them, and possibly an opportunity of da'wah, then the scholars tend to say it's permitted with those criteria and with those conditions. Does that mean that, you know, Muslims who are not in that situation should do it? Absolutely not. Okay, Muslims are not in that situation. They say, yeah, let's have a Christmas party, but, you know, we're not going to obviously have any crosses, and we're not going to do this, or we're not going to do that. No, here there's no need. Okay, and then we are going against an issue, the hadith we're speaking about earlier, that the Prophet ﷺ wanted us to have our separate, distinct Eid. Okay, I understand that a lot of Muslim families, they do get together on Christmas Day, and one of the reasons they do that is because everybody's off, and it's just really convenient to do so. Okay, everybody's off work, and you know, it's an opportunity to get together, to take advantage of that. It's fine, it's a good thing, inshallah ta'ala. Spend time with your family, fine, but don't consider it Christmas dinner. Don't get a Christmas tree. Don't get a Christmas tree. Don't consider it a Christmas gathering.
Get the turkey out.
Yeah, don't do those kind of things. Don't Merry Christmas and that kind of thing. No. It's got nothing to do with Christmas. It's a matter of convenience, and it's a matter of getting together as a family, and that's the point. Okay, for a revert, as I said, maybe, we have slightly more flexibility in these kind of situations with the conditions mentioned. For a family of Muslims, this makes no sense whatsoever, and it does contradict the hadith mentioned earlier. And also, we will add to this hadith in Abu Dawood, where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man tashabbaha bi qawmin fahuwa minhum." Whoever imitates a people, he's from them. So these things are very, very important for us to bear in mind. And just to remind ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Holy Quran, Surah Ma'idah, ayah number 2, Surah Ma'idah, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And assist one another in piety and God-fearingness, and do not assist one another in sin and transgression. Now, so that's the point. When people are worshipping in a way that we consider to be kufr and incorrect, then we're not going to get involved in that. Whereas, inshallah, our job, our role is to assist each other in piety.
Another question I had is, how should Muslims deal with co-workers? You might be getting gifts, or they're saying Merry Christmas. How should we deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, again, we're going to stick to what the Prophet ﷺ said. Our Eid is Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. So if non-Muslims are giving us gifts at these times, we're not going to return the gifts now. We are going to return gifts at Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Okay, this is a teaching of our deen, inshallah ta'ala, that that's when we're going to give gifts. And it's also, mashallah, an opportunity then, when you do that Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, they're going to ask, why are you doing this today? Is there something special? You get an opportunity to speak about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So,
I mean, sometimes it can be really hard to talk to, co-workers and people like, you see on a daily basis about religion, because we're not in a culture where people talk about religion. And I find
unfortunately.
And I find these kind of good opportunities to just get the conversation started. It's a good opportunity for da'wah.
Exactly, it breaks the ice. People get interested, start a conversation. Alhamdulillah, it's an opportunity. And this is the thing. There's always barakah. There's always blessing in following the example of the Prophet ﷺ, following the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. If you just feel shy and pressured and I'm going to do it anyway, so they're going to see me as the odd one out or this or that. Muslims are supposed to be strong. This is how our Prophet ﷺ taught us to be. Okay, not just whatever culture's doing, whatever's the norm, just do that. Okay. If Islam has taught us something different, mashallah, be strong, be proud of your deen. Okay, don't come across as embarrassed with regards to your deen. And this yaqeen and strength, this certitude and strength that we have in our deen, inshallah ta'ala, as long as we're not arrogant about it, Muslims should never be arrogant, as long as we're not arrogant about it, but certitude, yaqeen, and observing the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith, these can have more of an impact in terms of helping people or opening people's eyes to the deen of Islam than many, many other things that we may consider to be a good way of promoting the deen. A person's yaqeen, let your certitude flow, inshallah ta'ala, let it be clear for people to see, and that can be incredibly impactful, because a lot of people who follow other faiths, I don't want to say everybody, but I'm speaking about my own conversations, my own experiences with non-Muslims, is that a lot of people, they believe in certain things, but the yaqeen is not necessarily there. And I've had conversations with people, say, do you believe in an afterlife? Say, yes. Say, how can you be? So, are you sure? I say, I'm 100% sure. And there'll be other people who follow other faiths. I say, we're not sure, but we think so. That's the point. In Islam, we have this. We have absolute yaqeen with regards to the fundamentals of our deen. Do you know God exists? I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists without any doubt. Okay, there's an afterlife. I believe in the afterlife without any doubt. And as long as a person is not arrogant about it, but is passionate about it and has certitude regarding it and can explain himself or herself, this can be very, very powerful for people to observe.
Just one last thing, since we're running out of time. A lot of times children are getting involved in like Christmas plays and they don't really know about Jesus themselves or Isa alayhi salam, and I think it might be a good opportunity to teach your children and also give da'wah to other people about Isa alayhi salam at this time.
Yeah, this is true. So, first of all, to deal with the immediate issue, should Muslims be involved in nativity plays and these kind of things? No. Okay, this version of the story of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam is not the Quranic version. Okay, and that's the narrative we believe in, because this is directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has not been changed and corrupted over the years. So that's the point. But also there's a bigger issue, that playing the role of Isa alayhi salam for an actor, or to play that role, or Sayyidah Maryam, this we find completely unacceptable. It's not permitted for any person to play the role of a prophet, or even a righteous person like Sayyidah Maryam. So yes, it is an opportunity for us to learn and remind ourselves, because when we speak about educating others, we need to educate ourselves before anybody else. We need to learn, okay, what exactly does Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, what exactly does the Quran say regarding Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam? Make sure we understand that, make sure we know that, the distinction between the Quranic narrative and what's in culture here.
And I think it's important to teach that then to the children as well, because they're going to be learning a different thing at school.
Yeah, so educate ourselves and the children, very importantly to children. And then yes, we're now in a position to speak to others about it as well, inshallah ta'ala.
Right, thank you very much for your time. Jazakallah khair. We're out of time. Till next time. Salam.
Alaikum salam.